ready? You got me running.
I am Meredith Hirsh, and this is Working Healthcare. Today's episode is a little different and honestly, a lot of fun because I'm interviewing someone who actually reports directly to me. That's right. I've pulled boss privilege and invited my very own Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Christa Eitel, to join me. Technically, yes, this could double as a performance review. But don't worry, Christa, we'll keep it light. Christa joined the Hirsh Center in January and hit the ground running, bringing fresh insight, operational clarity, and calm leadership in the middle of what we all know is an endlessly complex industry. She's brilliant, strategic, and kind. But what really inspires me is the boldness of her mid-career move. She transitioned from academia to private medical practice while raising 2 kids, running a household, and navigating the same doubts many of us face, even when we think about changing course. And that's what today is really about, empowering women to lead, even when it's scary. Because let's be honest, imposter syndrome is real. And it doesn't matter how many degrees you've earned or how many spreadsheets you've mastered. So many women still wonder, am I really ready for this? What if I fail? Or the one I hear the most is, what if I'm not qualified enough? But here's the truth. Only about 10% of Fortune 500 companies have female CEOs. In healthcare, women make up 70% of the workforce, but just 40% of C-suite positions, and far fewer when you narrow it down to executive roles like CEO or CFO. It's not about capability. It's about confidence, access, and support. And that's where stories like Christa's come in. She represents the power of women saying yes to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Now, half of all workers are considering a career change this year. Half. That's a lot of people asking, what's next? And Christa's journey shows us what it looks like to make the leap when courage, clarity, and yes, a little humor is needed. Because when you're balancing budgets, leadership meetings, and youth sports schedules, sometimes the only option is to laugh and keep going. So whether you're standing on the edge of a big decision, navigating motherhood and leadership, or just need a reminder that you are more than capable, you're in good company today. Christa, welcome to Working Healthcare.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We had our meeting only a few hours ago, our HR meeting, our big HR meeting, and now I get to see you in my studio. I was like, don't you love my studio?
It is really cute.
It is really cute. I know. And I'm going to start putting these videos on YouTube so people can actually see us all together. And if they go onto YouTube, they'll get to see Mike. So Mike Chavez is going to be a regular. And you're like, I don't know Mike. And I go, Mike doesn't know you. But hey, he can bring the male story into the female empowerment movement that we're doing.
Love it.
We can't always be all estrogen.
Yes, agreed.
Exactly. So I am so intrigued by your boldness of doing this mid-career change. And I was looking, when I was looking for your position, which was a brand new position for our company, you weren't replacing someone, hopefully maybe me and a lot of my responsibilities, but I was looking for somebody who had a strong finance background, somebody who had a strong operational and organizational management background. And you were from academia. And I wasn't so worried about that, but I really wanted to know why you wanted to make that change. So when was the moment that you knew it was time to make a career change?
You know, honestly, I feel like I lost the passion for higher ed at one point, and I was really wondering why. And I think it was just a lot of change happening in higher ed. And I think it was moving into a direction I wasn't on board with. And I think it was right when my boss was let go that I thought, you know what, if you go, I'm going to go. And I got my resume around and started applying. And I did that, one, because again, I wanted to see what else was out there. And I didn't want to be stuck in higher ed. I was there for 20 years. And
how'd you even get started in higher ed? I don't even know if I know this story.
Funny is that my husband was working at a desk right out of college. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. He was like supervising a help desk. And so I was actually looking in the paper. That's how long ago this was. And for him, and I saw this, budget manager position for the Department of Economics at the University of Cincinnati. I was like, oh, this looks good. I'm going to apply. I was doing HR for a trucking company.
And what was your degree in, your undergrad again?
Organizational communications.
Okay. So people listening know that with an organizational communications degree, you work for a trucking company.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I really wanted to do is go into companies and like fix them. And so I applied and I got the job and I just ended up being really good at it. I just kept moving up. So finally, when I left the University of Cincinnati, I was an assistant dean of business operations for one of the largest colleges. And then we just got tired of Ohio and we moved to Florida.
I know. So, you made the move with your husband and your 2 kids. How many years ago now?
6 years ago. So another big, bold move.
Yeah.
I was like, I came downstairs one February and it was just gray and disgusting. And I look at my husband, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. I love the outdoors. I'm like, we have to move.
Yeah, but your whole life you were up there.
I know. And but we were in Cincinnati with no family. So we were already kind of doing it on our own.
Where'd your family go?
They were like all spread out and like in 2 hours away. And my brothers were already moved out, like out of the state. So I'm like, let's just do it. And my husband's family was all in Cleveland. So I'm like, let's just do it. So I threw my resume out there.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how large Ohio is. And it's funny because on the last episode I did with Mike, just he and I, he made fun of Ohio.
I don't know that I was making fun of it. But I'm from Nebraska, so we're similar. We left the Midwest for Florida.
Yeah.
If you're from Nebraska, apparently you can make fun of anybody.
That's all right. I can take it.
We have license.
Well, I don't know because we all make fun of Nebraska.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah. Well, not everybody could be cool and like from North Miami Beach like me. Right. No, but I spent the majority of my life in the Midwest. So I certainly know what cold is. And I certainly knew I did not want to stay there. So how did you make the leap or overcome the fear of moving from academia into private medical practice? Because you did have experience in the healthcare sector to a degree at Florida Atlantic University, but now you're going into private practice, which I think you realize now is a way different animal.
It's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how'd you overcome that fear?
I weighed the pros and cons, right? And really thought it through. But I'm the type of person that if I made a mistake, I'll figure it out. Just go for it.
You bet on yourself.
Heck yeah, I do.
Where do you think that comes from? Because I feel the same way as you. And I liked you because I felt like you were a mini me. I don't know if people like to hire mini me's, but I was looking for somebody to replace a lot of what I was doing, to do what I did 5-6 years ago before we got as large as we are. And so I needed somebody who had a lot of the skill sets I had and could move into that role. But I think you and I are very different than a lot of women specifically. Where do you think it came from? Where you just pull up your bootstraps and figure it out and have the confidence in yourself?
I think it's my upbringing. I had to be very independent, very young. And I'm the youngest of 4 children. I come from a football family. So it's, I had 2 big brothers. I had to have that confidence.
And you're little. What are you, like 5'3"? 5'3", okay.
And, I feel like I had, and they were kind of cocky guys. So I got to see that. I was always just kind of, I'll figure it out. Like I said, I had to be very independent. I was walking myself to school at 3rd grade. I'll figure it out. So
was I. So maybe there has to do something. Maybe it's just the middle child who gets screwed over. I don't know. I'm thinking of my own 3 kids, and I know my middle one doesn't listen because he doesn't believe in technology. So he's going to be a farmer, literally, winemaker. That's good for him. But as an oldest, if you're the oldest of multiple siblings, you have to figure it out, right? Because you're the one who's put in charge. And I would think if you're the youngest, nobody has time for you anymore. Yeah. So maybe we're one and the same.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like my parents were traveling to my brother's college football games, I was home left alone with no like cell phone. I had a landline. They would call me occasionally like, hey, we're leaving the game. We're about to come home. And I'm like, okay.
And you're like 8?
I mean, I was maybe a little bit older, but I was still in elementary school.
I don't know. I was
like the neighbors
9.
were around, but still.
I was 9 when I was left alone with my brother and his friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? They think I am mature enough at 9 to take care of my 7-year-old brother and his friends. I'm like, now they would call Children Family Services. What about you, Mike?
What I'm interested in is there's risk taker in there, because as you said at the beginning, that you lost passion for what you were doing. So you made the change. Lots of people lose passion or have lost passion for what they're doing, but don't have the guts to make that change. So what drove you to, it almost seemed like it wasn't a decision that you had to make. It was just what you were going to do.
Yeah.
So there's like risk taker in there.
It really did come down to, I've got to do something different. When I was dreading going into work, I knew, because this is my time away from my family, and I want to have that passion. I want to feel good about what I'm doing. And so, yeah, I knew it was time to make that change.
Yeah, I was listening to another podcast. They were talking about this specifically, and they said that many people live lives of quiet desperation. Mm-hmm. So they have lost passion, but whether or not they make that, take that leap to make a change is something different. Not a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, that wasn't going to be me.
Right. And even with me, I love doing this podcast. I really do. I've always found myself to be a teacher. And it's funny because I just met with the FAU team, and I'm looking at moving into the a professorship position in the Master's in Healthcare Administration program in executive education. Right now, I teach a certification program, and I love that. And I love going out and doing speaking engagements, and I love educating, which is what I do on working healthcare. And I was joking with Mike, but it's serious. My husband says, why do you teach everybody everything that we do? And I go back to, I can give them the recipe, but they're not going to bake the same cookie. And if we don't all work together, we're not going to get very far. So I really think there's a big lack of collaboration in healthcare in general. But going back to, where do I find the time? How do I do this? I've lost my passion for running day-to-day operations. I have. And that's why I even needed your position.
Right.
I like change. I thrive in change. I do really well with change. And that's why people are always like, hold on the reins, Meredith, like stop. You can't like implement 500 things at one time. And you're supposed to be like if you're my ebony and I'm the ivory, Mike, or yin and yang, although I'm the yang, I don't know. We've got to have the, you say good cop and bad cop. I don't want to be the bad cop.
Some days you have to be.
I don't know how many hours in your day, but mine's only 24. I don't know how you find the time.
I told you my hobby is sleep, but that's why I needed Christa. I did. I need Christa because I want to be able to do other things. I don't want to have regret either. I really want to create change in this world, positive change. I love education. I love this. I love meeting people. I love going out. I cannot sit behind a desk in my 10,000 square foot medical practice. And I love everybody there, but to see the same people day in and day out, I need diversity somewhere. I need to keep things spicy. So I like my adjective. I'm going with my adjective that someone called me spicy. I'm going with it. So what have you seen as the biggest challenge though, making this change? Like, obviously, it was going to be different, but coming in, and we're past your 90-day review. So I already know some of this now, but what did you think was the biggest challenge that you didn't expect?
How complex it is. If you look at the process from start to finish, the pre-auths, the check-in, the actual visit itself, and the fee ticket, and then the whole billing process behind it. I didn't realize how complex it was in all the administrative work.
So that's
in a practice.
Do you think we should invite the insurance companies to come down and see how complex it is?
I think that would be a good idea. And I also think too,
they know how complex it is.
Do you think they really
Yes,
do?
they do?
Do you think CMS knows?
They did it. They did a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, no, they forced it upon us.
So they know.
But you're right. It is just so much. I don't even think people sometimes who work in smaller practices, because you said it once, Mike, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You come into a practice that's really well run, although we're a little too manual. We're trying to move into the AI world. We're going into 2025,
Which
right?
I love that you're open to that.
Yes. Oh, we have to be. Otherwise, you're not surviving.
Yeah.
But going into a traditional, I'm going to say mom and pop shop, or even in a hospital where you work in one silo, to seeing the whole gamut, I don't think people really know how complex the healthcare industry truly is if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, but I think your perspective is the right one, and you should maintain it no matter what. So when somebody thinks that they have it all figured out, that's when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. So that's a good perspective.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I dragged you into this, Christa, because I realized that I had 12 men in a row scheduled as guests. And I was like, what the heck? And I didn't even realize it, which one made me realize you have to make a conscious effort to invite different people to the table or to create a change. You just can't let it go. It's like Mike and I talked about the podcast. You can't just hope for Google reviews and then you'll get a good 5-star rating. You have to actively seek out positive reviews. Otherwise, you're just like left with scraps and whatever anybody wants to do. So I had 12 guys in a row and I was like, I'm such a feminist. I really believe in female empowerment. And I can say that boldly because I have 3 sons and I fully support them and my husband as well. I do love men, but I also don't think enough people support women. Enough women support women.
Agreed.
Where does that stem from? Because you've told me your mom is your best friend. Was she always a supporter of you? Have you sought out ways to support other women?
Yes. My mom was a very huge supporter of mine. And yes, I know what it's like to be treated by other women in an unkind way. And I knew the first woman boss I had that treated me that way, I thought, I'm never going to do that. I will never do that. And so I make it a point, to treat everyone fairly and kindly. You know that about me. So yes, I've made it a point to really boost, especially women, up because they do not advocate for themselves.
They don't. Why do you think that is? And why do you think other women don't support other women? Why do they potentially try to intimidate other women?
Because I think that's happened to them. And so they keep doing it. They keep repeating the pattern. And I'm going to break that pattern as much as I possibly can. But I think it's that that was done to them. So they're going to keep doing it to others. And no.
When did you first realize, was it with that female boss, that there was some type of tension, women to women? It was that first time?
And others in the office noticed it as well. I didn't even have to say anything. It was the tone towards me. And I think it's too because I do work really, really hard and I was getting praise from above. And I think that caused the tension. And I thought, I am not going to back down just because you're uncomfortable with it.
Did you ever feel that way though from men?
No.
Yeah.
No, never. All my men bosses have been amazing.
That's what I've said. So I've always had men as my mentors until recently. And it was really after my MBA program. I graduated at 42 and I made a conscientious effort that I'm going to work to empower women, because going through that program, I never had a female on my team ever. It was always men. And I'm like, why is that? And I would try to work with other women and I was shut out and I felt like, oh, they don't want to be my friend. So I just hung out with guys. And so here I have Mike, of course, he's a guy, on co-hosting, although I'm doing all the talking so far. You got to keep up with it. Come on, Mike.
I got you.
Talking to you as a woman and trying to uncover a little bit, because going and looking at my schedule for 12 podcasts in a row and realizing I didn't have a woman in that mix. It wasn't that I didn't ask women. It's that I had asked women and women had said no, and you were also going to say no.
No, I wanted some time to think about it.
Mike, on the other hand, said yes in like a nanosecond.
Well, in your defense, I think you're more interested, or I'm speaking for you, but more focused on the subject matter as opposed to whether it's a male or female, right? And then you were like, oh my gosh, I've just realized that I've had 12 men in a row. So
yeah, that's what happened. And I didn't actually have them all recorded. I just have a Dropbox. So I list everybody that I'm interviewing and that I'm scheduled out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to mix it up. But you're right. I would just let it happen organically. And then retrospectively, that's why I said I had to make a conscientious effort, because in my MBA program, I really relied on the men in my class, not the women in my class, because they didn't want any part of me. And I sort of felt that way retrospectively, looking back my whole life on that. I mean, my biggest cheerleader has been my husband, but I got married at such a young age that, maybe, then I was just, aligned in that way. Then I ended up having 3 boys, and I said, oh, it's so great that I didn't have a girl, because I wouldn't even know what to do with a girl. Maybe someday I'll end up with a granddaughter and we'll all be, I'll get to see what it's like to buy dresses and stuff. But I don't feel that competition. Like I don't think I have that competitive gene, and I don't know why. Oh, I'm very competitive, but I'm competitive whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter.
Me too.
Like, I don't care. Yeah. But I feel like maybe women are raised to be competitive. Like, but my grandmother always said to me, Meredith, someone is always going to be smarter, prettier, thinner, richer than you. Get over it.
Yeah.
But I think as women, you probably have to be, because most industries are male-dominated industries, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as I said, 10% of Fortune 500 companies, that's it, are run by women. It's all men. Men are at the C-suite. I've been asked to be on boards because I'm a woman. Literally. You're the most, we could deal with you. You're the most eligible woman we know. And so I used to walk in and joke and say, at least I bring the estrogen to the table. That's awful. There doesn't just have to be one woman, one Black person, one gay person, one whomever, one other minority. Why? Women aren't even a minority. Right. We're like the majority of the population. Yeah. And then you're sitting with like 6 white dudes. Yeah. And they're like 4, quote, minorities. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, and listen, I'm not a big DEI person, but I want to look for the most competent people. But when I ask women, I feel like a lot of them have imposter syndrome. And what I liked about you when I met you, Christa, is you were very confident, and you were willing to negotiate with me, and you were willing to have honest conversations with me. And that's what I needed. I'm a blunt person, and I want that honesty. I just want to tell it as it is and not like skirt around something. But I find that a lot of women have imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. You don't feel like you have it?
No.
So what was your hesitance about being on the podcast at the beginning?
Well, because I've only been in this healthcare realm for 3 months, and I thought you were going to ask me a lot of healthcare questions. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
No,
because you know me, I'll be
coding. Let's talk about CPT coding.
Exactly. And I'm the first one to say, I don't have enough information to answer that right now, but I'll get back to you. And I didn't want it to be a lot of those.
So, Mike, you think only women have imposter syndrome?
I don't. I've had it. I still get it. I think you said you don't have it at all.
I mean, in certain situations, yes, there's like a little bit of that there, but overall, no. Again, if I make a mistake, I'll fix it. I have the confidence of, if it doesn't go well, oh well. I guess I don't have that fear that I can't make it right.
See, and I'm a male, and I have imposter syndrome. I still get it.
But what about imposter? So this is totally not, quote, healthcare related, but this is because 70% of the healthcare industry is female. So it's a female dominated industry, workforce industry. But when you look at the leadership, it's much more heavily focused on men. When I go to the CEO summit at the MGMA meeting, and you literally have to have CEO in your title in order to go, I think last year there were maybe 70 people, and I would tell you maybe 15 were women. So you had 55 men and 15 women. And so there is a huge discrepancy. But if you were to ask me, what am I insecure about? I would never tell you my intellect. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I know who to ask or I'll figure it out. I'm great at problem solving. It's what I do. And I feel like sometimes imposter syndrome in the workforce has to do with the fear of not having the right aptitude. And I'll go back, Mike, to what we've talked about. Christa doesn't have that. She has a lot of formal education. You didn't finish college. Do you think that has something to do with the feeling of imposter syndrome?
I do. And I hadn't even
See, I'm a
thought
social
of that,
worker in another life.
honestly, until you just said it. But I can totally see that. Yeah, I mean, because sometimes I'll sit there and think, what gives me the license to run a company or hire and fire people, So maybe it is that. And I came from humble beginnings, small town. We didn't have a lot of money, but I was raised by a single mother, and that's where I get my work ethic. So, and also like, I think women are amazing. And the person that I brought over. You can't even nail
one down. You can't even choose. You've never been married.
I haven't. I didn't know we were going to go there.
That's a little harsh.
I'm trying to drum up more viewership on YouTube.
Well, I'll do it.
Anyhow, I brought Vicky into our company from NextGen, and I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about your episode, and without her, we made her an owner, small owner in our company. Without her, I don't know where we would be, because she's so great at being detail oriented, and Ray and I are, kind of all over the place. Like I said, without her, we wouldn't be where we're at. I know that for a fact.
Is Vicky a mom?
She is not.
That's interesting. See, I feel like I love to hire moms. I don't know if that's HR appropriate to say, but I do. I love to hire moms because I feel like they know how to figure it out. Women are always the primary caregiver, typically, like 99% of the time. So trying to juggle motherhood and a career and getting it all done in the household, your mom had 3 jobs.
And my mom is like superhero. When I think about what she did to raise my brother and I think there's no way I could have done that. She worked multiple jobs. She was going to school, all while raising 2 boys by herself. It's like, I don't know how she did it. I don't think that I would have been able to do it. And like I said, she's basically a superhero.
I think you just do it though. Like you pull up your bootstraps and you just get it done. Like there isn't a choice. You just figure out how to do it because you have to do it, right? You know there's no option. I look back on going back to grad school in Gainesville. So I drove up there for 3 days every month. And I had 3 kids at home. I graduated when my oldest was 15. And it was my 3rd attempt, by the way, at grad school. So we talk about imposter syndrome. I had to get my master's degree. I had to. And it's why. Did I ever feel I wasn't smart enough or something like that? I go back to, it wasn't that. It was that I worked with my husband and I didn't want to be the doctor's wife. And I needed to make it on my own. And I feel like I may have had a little bit, and I had to prove myself, right? Or other people might think that I wasn't valid enough and I would have to prove myself. I'm not very good at like downplaying things. I usually come like at it with like a hacksaw.
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked about on the previous episode, playing to win, not playing not to lose.
Yeah.
And that perspective that you described, you said that there's no option. That's much different than I'm just going to try to get by. That's night and day, but it comes back to your mindset and your perspective and playing to win, not playing not to lose.
Well, you have a choice in life to be a survivor or a victim. And I know about your background. I know about Christa's. I know about mine. And the 3 of us grew up differently, but the 3 of us we didn't have easy upbringings. And you had to decide whether you were going to be a survivor or a victim.
That's true. That's true. And I relate it to what you just said with your husband, and you didn't want to just be the doctor's wife. And I always had my background and my upbringing in the back of my mind. And, I came from a single mom and not a lot of money. So I was always like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a success because there was no other option.
And I think for me, it was my mom was married and divorced 3 times, and she had to restart her career at the age I am now. And I never wanted to rely on anybody.
Yeah.
I always wanted to make sure that I could support myself, that I could take care of myself. And it was really hard when I decided for a brief period to stay at home with my kids and take that break, because I was actually the primary breadwinner. I made twice what Mark made. It wasn't a lot, by the way. He was like a resident. And then, they don't make much money as medical residents, but it was very difficult for me to do that because I'm like, oh man. But I thought, if something ever happens, I do have something in my back pocket and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yes.
I'll figure it out.
Right.
I'll figure it out. It's interesting to me that what has such a profound effect on us. It kind of shapes who we are. Like you talked about that female boss, and something just told you, I never want to be like that. So it really shaped who you are. So it's interesting to see what things we notice in our lives and things that happen to us that have such a profound effect on us. And some of our best teachers teach us what not to do. And that female boss of yours was one of those.
Right. And I didn't come from much either in Ohio, but I knew I wanted something more out of my life. And I wanted to show my kids more than what we had, so it was important to me that one, I was like you too, I will always work. I will always have my own.
Please, I went to marriage counseling and the therapist said, Meredith, you need to work a little bit more on being more codependent. I'm like, I don't know. Has anybody ever said that to like a couple in marriage counseling? Yeah.
But it is true. It's a lot of how you were brought up and your experiences leading to where you are today that form who you are. So yeah, I think that's why I am the way I am.
How has being a mom impacted your leadership style? Because we have some tough cookies in our practice. And whenever you're like, oh man, she is tough. I said, I told you so. I know you're not supposed to say that, right? That's bad leadership, Meredith. But I know you've utilized skills from being a mom. So what skills have you utilized as part of your leadership style?
Definitely multitasking. You have to know how to multitask and keep a schedule and, not get burned out. Like you have to figure this out because there's people relying on you every direction you look. And so you don't have that moment to yourself to really breathe. So you've got to be able to figure it out. And so I don't know how. I think, I definitely have failed at times. But
you've balanced budgets now and you've fixed ACs and you've solved our plumbing problem in one of our bathrooms. Who knew?
Who knew I could do all that?
I love this theme. My mom is my favorite person in the entire world. So mom being the theme, is it because Mother's Day's coming up?
I didn't even think about that. Now, you're going to get me again because you're right. Mother's Day is coming up, but this episode is not going to air before Mother's Day.
Just after Mother's Day.
Maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to flip it around a little bit, but I haven't introduced you yet, Mike.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. Gosh. Well, then how about in preparation for Father's Day, we'll talk so awesomely about our moms.
It's not fair to fathers.
Well, okay. So now that you mentioned Mother's Day, Father's Day, let me ask you, do you think that women lead differently than men?
No, I actually think that's a personality thing.
Okay.
I do. Besides that, the fact that I think there is some women against women kind of thing in certain cases. There is that example, but I've seen some men not do it right either.
Oh, I agree.
We messed it up a lot.
Not against me personally, but and a lot of times what I've noticed is that men don't like confrontation as much as women.
Oh, you think women like to be confrontational?
I think they're not afraid of it as much, but men do not. In my experience, I have noticed that they don't like confrontation as much.
I've had people tell me that I have a lot of male traits, and I really don't know how to read that. You've worked for a lot of men, the woman you don't like. I don't know. Now you chose to work for another woman. What is your thought on that?
I did pick up that we're a lot alike. So I knew that we would be fine. Like I knew that I could be like, whoa, Meredith, like coming on a little strong, like I knew that we would be okay. And I knew that you just came across as someone that was going to build me up. Mm-hmm. I knew that if I come work for you, you will make sure that I am successful. I picked up that in the first interview, but definitely in the second interview. And that's why I was excited, because you do want to move on. And you were talking about all these things that you were going to give me and the experience. And I knew that to be true. And so I'm excited.
And I wouldn't have just done it because you're a woman. I would have done it if you're a man as well. I just like to work with people who want to grow. So my biggest challenge, and we've talked about identifying leaders, and I really want to spend a little time. I mean, you started the leaders room, okay? You have leaders in your company name, and you are working on succession planning and building up our rising leaders and current leaders within our company. And I know that this is a hot topic right now. I just want people who want it, right? Like whoever you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care your age. I just want you to want it. Like want to learn, want to take chances, want to work hard, right? And be vested. And if you don't, I lose interest very quickly, which is where I struggle managing people. What is your secret sauce to leadership? That's not a secret sauce.
She just gave you like the biggest compliment ever.
I know. Maybe I'm not good at taking compliments. Repeat it. I'll take it.
By the second interview, she knew that you were invested in her success and you'd make sure that she was successful. What a compliment. Like if somebody told me that, I'd be like, wait, what'd you just say?
Thanks, Christa.
That was amazing. So your question was,
how do you identify leaders, and then how do you help build them up?
That's a tough one. It's very much dependent upon the person. It goes back to what you just said. Honestly, if they want it, and you can tell that there's somebody that's gonna listen and put in the time and put in the work, they can be a leader. And you mentioned our company name. It's because I want to create rheumatologist leaders. And I think that, all of them probably have it in them, but
no.
I think.
You think?
I think
so. Are you an eternal optimist?
I think I am. I might be. I'm just figuring that out. I don't know. But as you were talking, I was thinking, and when she asked you the question about whether men and women lead differently, I think that I would have answered yes. So at my former company at BenCare, I hired 2 salespeople, and they happened to be both female. And the reason I did that is because I thought back to like the best medical sales reps that I had ever met, the most successful, all female. I don't know what the reason for that was, but that was just what I realized. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find 2 females that have that drive in them. And they're both doing incredible things now. And they're in their like 20s and just doing amazing things. So thank goodness they were willing to put in the work. But I specifically wanted females because I looked back to the most successful medical sales reps that I had known, and they were all female.
And they're in sales?
What's that?
They're in sales? That's what their role is?
They were in sales in my former company.
And
they're no longer there. They've both moved on and done bigger and better things.
They have no problem of confronting people.
Then maybe that's it.
And that's why.
I agree. Females are definitely more confrontational.
Yes. They will speak up when they're passionate about something. And I do find that to be true.
You do. I still want to say it depends what female you're talking about and what male you're talking about, because there are a lot of women, even think about our company. There are a lot of women who won't speak up. And some of the men will speak up. I mean, if you look at my household, my husband thinks that if he like puts the covers over his head, nobody will see him and he doesn't have to say anything. But I think that's because he's with me and I'm so strong, which when we did our DISC assessment was so crazy to find out he's the only D as a provider and D is dominance. So I joke with him. I don't know if it's really a joke or I'm being serious. I say, my D's higher, so you have to acquiesce. But do you think men and women lead differently?
Again, I think in certain aspects, yes, to your point. But at the same time, I think it's a personality and upbringing and your experiences that make you the leader you are. I think it's a combination of all those things.
But what are the most important things in leadership? Emotional intelligence. Who's more emotional, males or females?
Not even emotional. EQ is more of reading people, reading the room.
Right. But if you're not emotional yourself, you can't read emotions well. So I think females have an advantage there.
Maybe because they've been taught to be more emotional or to feel more emotion. Do you think, listen, none of us are doctors, but I'm just saying, I think it would be more of a nurture thing than a nature thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the
sense.
biggest things that I hate when people say women can't lead because they're too emotional. I've seen a lot of men be emotional. They're not crying, but they use their emotions in the wrong way.
What I just said is the opposite of what you just said. I think that they might be better leaders because they're in tap with their emotions.
Maybe
therefore
empathy.
They can read
Could
emotions.
I say empathy? Maybe more empathetic.
More empathetic for sure.
Instead of necessarily more emotional. It's like growing up as a little girl, guys are never called bossy. Only women are called bossy or little girls are called bossy. And it's not a compliment. And so it's changing the narrative and saying, I love the way you lead. I love the way that you set all of your stuffed animals out and teach them curriculum. That's what I did.
This is such an interesting topic because now as females in politics, I love politics. I just find it interesting. And now that females are becoming more and more prevalent, running for president, it's been so interesting to read all the different takes on females becoming president of the United States, So there's a lot of different.
Only in America it doesn't exist. Every other country seems to have, except in the Middle East, you can't. Well, no, Israel, but you don't have a ruler who's a female in America. And this is a totally different topic. Right. And so off the rails and not related to healthcare. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. It's not, I thought it might be Nikki Haley and that was totally thrown out really fast, but
yeah. It's just been interesting for it to come out and now everyone's talking about it and how females might be different leaders than males.
Oh, I think they are, but I think again, obviously it depends on the person as well. Mm-hmm. How are you identifying leaders within our practice? How do you know who you want to target and pinpoint and help rise to another level?
I mean, I've been there 3 months, but I see it in the people that speak up and they come to me and they say, hey, I have this really great idea. And I'm like, I love great ideas.
You've been here 4 months, by the way.
Okay, 4 months.
Okay, thank you.
So it's people that come to me. They want to make a change. They see an improvement. They see an efficiency and they speak up. To me, that's the first cue of good leadership. And then I see how they treat others and how they, treat their teams and work within their team. And so those are the people I have my eye on.
How are you struggling with some team members? Because I know you've identified certain people and thought that they might be good leaders. And then you've gotten a little pushback, not necessarily from them, but from other members of the team to say, I don't know, Christa, maybe you haven't been here long enough. How are you handling that?
I tell them to give grace. When you have a new manager step up, how are you supporting them? How could you support them more? So I turn it back on them. And I do secretly think sometimes they want to see people fail because they thought somebody else should have gotten the role. And I try to empower them to help support when they come to me with that. And the other thing you asked me, what was the biggest thing I've noticed coming into the healthcare field, is there really is a burnout that I see. And I think it's these people go day in and day out on their feet, and we have a busy practice, and it's exhausting. And so I think people too expect people to be at a certain level, but they're just exhausted. We just finished the busy season. And so I'm trying to bring back that energy as well as help support. And I'm trying to get the team to help me do that as well.
How much of that can we really change? Because we talk about healthcare, and Mike even said earlier, the system is so convoluted and crazy. Insurance companies set us up. They know exactly how crazy and convoluted it is. Do we have a chance? Do we have a chance at this balance or this lack of burnout that everybody's experiencing right now?
I don't know. I mean, you have one of the best practices just from interviewing the short time of, filling
that's the compliment
gaps.
I'm taking.
Right. And so, because I've hear horror stories of other practices, but I think they quickly jump ship to see if it's better there, when really it's just going to be the same everywhere you go. And are they leaving for 50 cents more just to see what it's like? I think the turnover is just, we've got to stop the turnover. And I don't know how to exactly do that.
Do you think it's because we're hiring the wrong people, or do you think that it really is something that we are doing, or do you think that is systemic? That's your third choice. It's systemic nationally because it's healthcare. It is what it is.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. Like I said, the days are busy. And again, we're patient after patient after patient, and a lot of our patients don't feel good either. So just like hearing all of that, I think it's building up that they're like, I'd rather deliver pizzas. I'd rather get groceries for Instacart.
You think you're leaving to go deliver pizzas?
I don't know. This is what I want to drill into. I want to know where they're going. Why are they leaving? And I want to figure it out for our practice 100%. And I do want to focus. That's one of the projects I want to work with Eileen now that we have an HR director. I want to figure this out. So I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Mike? You work on the management side and help other practices.
I'm definitely an optimist, and I want to answer your question.
I'm an optimist too.
We absolutely have a chance. We're playing to win, right? Not playing not to lose.
I will not go down.
Right. And I think it's just a matter of making small incremental changes that will take an effect. It's not one thing that's going to change everything, right? It's just trying to make positive change, spreading information like we're trying to do. And I think that's what's going to affect it. But yeah, we absolutely have a chance. Yes, there's things working against us, like health insurance companies for one. However, we're all working together. We're sharing information to make things better.
What do you think of employee surveys? What do you think of somebody saying, you know what, I'm brand new here. I'm going to go ahead and just interview everyone or send out a survey, because if it's blind, they'll be more honest and they'll just let me know what it is and unload on me.
I'm a fan of them. If you can get an honest opinion from an employee, from their perspective, there will be things that you didn't realize. No matter how great a leaders we are, there's going to be some things that you had no idea was going on, some perspectives that, and it's not going to be 100% accurate or things that you should make changes on, but you're going to get some interesting perspectives. If you learn one valuable thing from an employee survey, I think it's worth it.
I don't know. What are your thoughts, Christa?
I think it has to be a well-drafted survey. And you got to figure out what's the point. What are you trying to get out of it? And I think it's got to be about the right timing as well. We've had this conversation. I had one-on-ones with everybody when I first started, and they were very open and honest with me. And I don't know if that's a better route to go than a survey.
I think depending on the size company, I feel like what you did is the right route, because you did show empathy. You did show that you cared, that you wanted to be there for the team. And you asked, call it a criticism sandwich, what do you love? What would you like to see change? And so you're hearing the positive, you're hearing, quote, the negative, and you're sort of stacking it and putting it into categories. And then you came out and you divulged this information when we had our goal meeting and shared, hey, this is what I'm hearing from the team. And yeah, I think the majority of them were really honest with me. And I would say we're 53 employees. That's a far better way to go about it than to just do a blind survey, because I feel like timing is so crucial.
Yeah. But I do want to start with, when I came back with the results of meeting with everyone, you didn't know who said what. And I was a vault with them.
Right.
Right. And I told you, Meredith, I'm going to have these one-on-ones, but I'll put it in themes, but you're not going to know who said what. And I think that really helped them open up to me. And I've built that trust with them, because now they'll come and talk to me about other things as well.
That's smart.
Yep.
You maintain the integrity of the whole process.
100%. I needed to build that trust right away. And that was important for me.
That's great.
And the other question I asked them is, where do you want to be 2 to 5 years from now? And how can I help you get there? And I learned a lot about them that way.
How do you balance work and even a new career and your life? Because you still have 2 relatively young kids. Neither of them drive. So anybody under the age of driving needs, obviously, your assistance. How do you balance it? And does balance even exist?
No.
Somebody told me they didn't call it work-life balance. They called it work-life existence. Maybe that was it. I don't remember the terminology.
Don't like that.
But they have to coexist, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you do have to coexist. Listen, you hang out with people you work with.
Do I?
You do. I know you do.
I do.
I know. So do I. A lot of my friends are in healthcare. It's because I love it. And we talk about it all of the time. And I read about healthcare articles, and I'm doing this for fun, and I teach for fun. And what do I teach? Healthcare, because I like to be really good at something. And I don't, unless you're in the fashion industry, I don't really have that much in common with you. No, but I've made it my coexistence. I think they enmesh so much with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important, but yeah, I can see your perspective now. I don't disagree.
See, get people to side with me. But what about that balance? Is it even necessary, or can it coexist?
It can coexist, but I think you're always going to be in one way or the other, right? And when I feel like I've been working too much, that's when you're going to see, hey, I'm going to take Monday off just to go do something fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do try to find that balance when I feel like I'm really getting out of, I haven't seen my kids as much. You know, I've been coming home late. But I think it's important for anyone, whether you're just going to take on a partner or have kids, to immediately establish making them a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm at work, I make work a priority. When I'm at home, my kids are my priority. We sit down at the dinner table at least 3-4 nights a week. And that's my time to catch up on their day. They have time with us as parents. So I tried to find that early on and kept that, because I knew that was going to be important. It's hard to be spot on both places all day, every day. And you have to give yourself grace when you know you're finding that you're getting out of balance. And luckily, I have an amazing partner that does do it with me 50-50.
Do you ever find some of our employees don't quite get it, and they want their balance to be way more sided to the personal, and don't really understand the importance of the fact that they have responsibilities and a job to do?
Yeah.
And I would say more with leadership, management, physicians than I am those who work hourly.
Yeah, those hourly, I don't know how some of them are doing it. I really don't. You know, we have somebody that goes to 3 different schools before they even show up in the morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're getting up at 5:30 a.m. I have another one who just told me today that her car broke down and she's taken Uber to 2 different schools right now.
Oh my God.
And so they're figuring it out, and they're showing up on time, and they're in good moods. And, you know, I kudos to them.
Yeah. It's work ethic, and it's trying to identify those people who have it. And again, it's a survivor versus a victim mentality. And I remember there's somebody in our practice who 3 kids. She had just started, actually. This was a couple years ago, and found out that her car had broken down, and her husband went and said, I'll deal with it. And she Ubered into the office and she went along her day. And I was not used to that for a very long time. And I found out a couple of weeks after that had passed, and I was like, I love you. But I was just so proud of her. I'm like, I am just so proud of you. And I thank them. I'm like, thank you for being here. And she said, no, thank you. I go, no. Like, seriously, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing us that we're important. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it's a reminder to all of us too, that when you walk into these offices, whether it's a doctor's office or whatever, is just to be kind, because you don't know what it took for that person to get there that day. Honestly.
I agree.
That's the truth. I think that's one of the reasons why you're great at what you do, is because you're so empathetic and you think about things like that. There's a lot of people that don't necessarily think like that, especially in leadership.
Yeah. No, I truly care about these employees, and I think they know that. And I hear, oh, I love you, Christa, or like, I'm so glad you're here, and so that does make me feel good. And like I said, they do come talk to me, and I know that's because they trust me.
And I think it's important also for me to have known to step away. And it's okay. And it's good that Christa's getting compliments. And it's important that I, as her manager, empower her and support her and don't throw her under the bus, because I think that happens a lot too. And then it causes people to be insecure about the stability of their positions or about leadership, right? I think of this as my 4th child. And I've said this to Christa, you and I are mom and dad. If you and I are going to be good cop, bad cop, it has to be the we. Like, don't give up your power. Don't say Meredith said this. Like, we said this, or I said this, right? And then you can come talk to me and say, okay, Meredith, I just want to let you know, this is the answer that I gave the person. And you got to have the same answer if the person goes to you, so that we can have each other's backs, because then your children feel comforted, right?
Yeah. And in leadership, if you don't do that, they'll use it against you, and they'll say, they're not even communicating. They didn't even share what the other one said. And it's a breakdown in the whole, culture of the office, I'm sure. And we don't work as closely as you do with our employees. All our employees are remote. And when Ray and I started, we realized that we don't have to have a physical office. So why use that overhead for a physical office? So we're all remote. So you guys get a lot more impersonal communication and interaction with your employees than we do.
What direction or what advice would you give somebody who is looking to make either a mid-career life change, or someone who is looking to step up into a leadership role? I mean, you were in a leadership role, you just moved into a different type of career. But any advice that you could give somebody, man, woman, anybody, what advice would Christa Eitel give?
Again, I sat down and weighed the pros and cons, and then I really thought, where do I see myself in 10 years? And is this next step vital in getting there? Like, you have to decide, do you want to give it your all? And if you do and you fail, what's next? And so kind of just thinking it all through. And I think you have to seek advice too. I talk to a lot of people. I talked to the 3 references you talked to. I asked them their opinion. What are your thoughts of me leaving higher ed? What are your thoughts of me going into healthcare? And I did one thing too, which somebody was like, wow, I didn't think about that. I called my references and said, you be tough on Meredith too. I want your opinion of Meredith. And so I hope you talked to Larry for 40 minutes.
Oh my God. I think I spoke to all 3 of your interviewers for like 30 minutes at least.
Yeah.
And they were all deans of universities.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm learning all about higher ed.
So I wanted their opinion too. And so I think bring in your circle, talk it out. And again, I have a great partner that Doug and I sat down, like I'm giving up, this for that. And I'm going to be working longer hours and things like that. But we weighed it all out.
And I think it's important what you said is interview the person who's offering you the position as much as they're interviewing you. And I think there's a fear for people to also counter interview, but it's so important whether you're at the beginning of your career or at the end of your career. Don't just take it as a settlement. Have enough confidence in yourself, know what you're worth, and also interview the person who is, quote, interviewing you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your advice, Mike?
You took a risk, but it was very calculated, and you took a practical approach to risk. So it's very smart what you did. And at first I was like, that sounds really risky, but it wasn't so risky because you really took a calculated risk.
She's a finance person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did her cost benefit analysis.
I'm not reckless.
What advice would you give, Mike?
For
anybody wanting to make that leap, because you made it too. You've left companies and then you went out and started your own company.
I had the same approach as you. Is there is no option, and I'm a big I read a lot. And most of the stuff I read is nonfiction, motivational type stuff, and when you do that, something in the back of your mind is telling you those things like nothing changes if nothing changes, And
he's the
I
master of sayings also, by the way.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, for me, there wasn't an option. And I know that with great reward comes great risk. You can't get the reward if you don't take the risk, and you can't be reckless, but you have to take some risks. So the advice that I would give is just, take the approach that you had took. Don't be reckless, but, take a practical look at it, weigh your pros and cons. And if it makes sense, then take the leap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to round this out and ask you, Christa, now that you're really in the trenches of healthcare, if you could create one change within our American healthcare system, because that's what this podcast is all about, what would it be?
I know you end this with that question, and I've been thinking about it. And I'm going to go to a smaller level with my answer.
Okay.
And I think the change that I can contribute to right now is supporting you and Dr. Hirsh so that you can go out there and do that advocacy work that you are so passionate about. And I feel like that's where I can be of assistance, because I do see you guys making a change. And you're working hard to do that. And I'm going to be behind the scenes supporting you. And I think that's how I can contribute to the change.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's settling. Thank you, because I need that. I know my husband actually right now is in DC with the American College of Rheumatology, and he's working very hard to create change and to support rheumatologists. And I'm going to have a couple of a doctor and an attorney to talk about what's going on in the state of Florida after the legislative session. And then we're also going to have a physician come on board and talk about what is going on in Congress right now for physicians. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hold down
you.
the fort, Christa.
Yeah, I will.
Thanks for joining me on Working Healthcare. Mike, this was fun, our little triad here.
I liked it. I enjoyed it.
If you like this episode and want to learn more about the inner workings of our American healthcare system, follow Working Healthcare on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes are available every Tuesday. To watch short clips of past and upcoming episodes, including today's interview with Christa Eitel, follow Working Healthcare on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Tune in weekly with me, Meredith Hirsh, as we explore the inner workings of healthcare.
You ready? You got me running, got me running.